What's going on, guys? Kenney Conwell here, aka Mr. Money Savvy. And if you're watching this video right now, it's because you want to know how you can remove a public record from your credit report. Typically, these public records are bankruptcy, Chapter 7, Chapter 11, or Chapter 13, typically child support, judgments, and in some rare cases, tax liens. But I'm going to really get into the BK or the bankruptcy. Now, if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be putting out content like this all the time, but let's get into the specifics when it comes to getting these items removed. Now, number one thing you have to understand and you have to get is that the courthouse that's reporting that public record doesn't report that information to the credit bureaus. So the first step we have to do is silence the bureau or the agency, so to speak, that pulls the data from the courthouse, because number one, what you have to understand is Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian are private for-profit data companies. Data is a $1 trillion industry. But even though Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian report this data about you, they're not necessarily the ones doing the verification. What they're doing is they're getting verification from a system called, or from a smaller credit bureau in this example called LexisNexis. Now, LexisNexis is who goes out and contacts the courthouses or gets the data from the courthouses in order to say that, yes, this person does have a public record. And for our pretense purposes, what we're referencing is bankruptcy, a judgment, child support, because all of this information is public record. Now, depending upon your state, sometimes foreclosures can be a public record. And also in some scenarios, a repossession can be public record. But the biggest one that's the hardest to get removed is the bankruptcy. Now, here's the process. Number one, before we even send a dispute, because many people go wrong because they dispute their information with the big three, Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, and then once you dispute your information, guess what's going to happen? They don't have it. They're going to go verify that information with their third party. Then once that information has been verified, the next time you try to dispute, they're going to say this information has been verified. That may have happened to you. So before we even dispute, the very first thing we have to do is suppress our LexisNexis report. Now, once we suppress the LexisNexis report, we know what? Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian they don't have this information. They're going to go to LexisNexis to verify it. So that's why it's so important that we prevent LexisNexis from sharing our data, because it's our data. It's our personal data. They don't have to share it. We have the right as consumers to say, hey, look, I want to freeze information you're sharing about me because it's my data. Right now, once we've done that, there's something called PACER. Now, I won't get into all the weeds about what PACER is, but just know that PACER they work in conjunction with LexisNexis. Now, you can't silence PACER, but what you can do is you can silence your LexisNexis report. Now, you're probably wondering, all right, Ken, you've been telling me to silence my LexisNexis report. How do I do this? Right? It's really simple. It's very, very simple. You can just go to the website. I'll put the link in the description so you can suppress. But what we have to do, number one, is silence our credit report. Silence our name or our data with LexisNexis. Now, chances are the last time you pulled your credit report, especially if you're on the journey of fixing your credit, you had your name on your credit report, 2-3 different variations of your name. You had 2-3 different variations of your address. You had 2-3 different variations of maybe an employer. Now, why is this important? This is important because when you're suppressing LexisNexis specifically, you don't know what variation of your name is inside the LexisNexis database that's associated with the bankruptcy. So generally speaking, give you a little bit of context, when anybody is trying to improve their credit reports, they do disputing, and then the credit bureaus verify that information. Then when they verify that information, they come back to you as a consumer, sorry, we verified this information. So what we have to do at a deeper level is prevent them from verifying the information about us by knowing where to strategically go to silence that information. So when they do go to do the verification process, if they can't verify it per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which, by the way, is a law or an act that's been put in place for consumers, so that way we can have accurate data reporting about this. Because again, this is a private company. Equifax and Experian are not government entities. So we have that Fair Credit Reporting Act in place to help us. That being said, if they can't verify that information, then they have to remove it. Now, sometimes they'll verify it and sometimes you have to keep challenging it to get it removed. But ultimately, what I want to make sure I'm making clear is we have to suppress information at the LexisNexis level, but not just our first name. We have to do every type of variation, so that way anything that may be on our credit reports reporting that way can be suppressed. So when they go to try to verify it, they can't. Now, this holds true for bankruptcy. It also holds true for for child support, right? And then real quick on child support, brother, sister, more than likely, brother, take care of your kids. I'm not saying you don't take care of your kids. Take care of them. Make good on that. Make sure your kids is taken care of. However, from a reporting perspective, it may be misreporting. You need to get that information updated on your credit report, and chances are it's probably being reported or verified through LexisNexis. So you've got to be able to do that. In some rare cases as well, which we're talking about bankruptcies and public records, evictions can show up in the LexisNexis database as well. Now, a whole separate video how to get rental evictions removed from your credit report. But what I will say is if you have an eviction, it's typically not going to show up on your credit report. But when you go try to apply for an apartment, they're going to say, hey, look, you have an eviction. And the reason why they know that is because you're that data is probably being verified through that rental company, the rental history company, who's then verifying that data inside of LexisNexis. So, which is why we have to suppress LexisNexis in that example. But going back to the whole child support and then these public records, we have to silence or suppress LexisNexis or opt out from giving them the right to share my personal data. So when I do go send my challenge to the credit bureaus, they can't verify it. And if they can't verify it per the Fair Credit Reporting Act, they have to remove that item from reporting on my credit file. So that is how you get a public record, or at least start the process of getting a public record removed from your credit report. So click the link in the description and feel free to subscribe, like this video if it's helpful to you. And then if you want additional training on how you can take this to the next level when it comes to improving your credit, click the link. I have a free training where I go into more detail about this. Peace.